Okay, guys, welcome to our team call tonight. Super excited to hear from Shannon and Paul about their experience at UPW. I know the FOMO was real for me, and so yeah, you guys were so excited. I can't wait to take notes. So take it away.
Hi, guys. So we just got back yesterday, I guess?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday from Tony Robbins, and I know a bunch of you really wanted to go, and it was, honestly, it was kind of just last minute for Paul and I to decide to go, as you'll learn, and our 4 primal needs later. I'm really big on uncertainty. So I'm just like, this sounds great, and I don't want anything to stand in my way. I'm kind of that person. That's totally my personality type. So when this came up for me, oh dear, I just hit a bad thing on my phone or on my computer. For me, it was a really big, and Paul, both of us together, like we were just like, this for us, this is a no-brainer, and we've got to do it. And we happened to be able to fit in the time to be able to do that, to take it away from work and just go do it. That's a little bit with our jobs. What makes it a bit more flexible is that we can kind of just drop out and go and do things like that. So, and yes, obviously it was like a huge financial investment in ourselves. It's not like, to be honest, it's not like we just like had that money to expend to go and do this. So this was huge, you guys. Like, this was a huge investment in ourselves.
Hey, will you rewind and just do like a brief of what exactly UPW is and why you guys are so excited and why we're all excited, just for everybody who might watch this later.
Okay. So I was going to get into that when I went right into the slides, but
hey, actually, wait, I'm going to mute everybody and then unmute yourself because I'm getting a lot of feedback from them.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Okay, good. Right. So it was a huge financial investment for the both of us. And so we invested in it in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And also obviously in our business, because this is something we're so passionate about. We're so passionate about health and fitness and helping others get started on our journey. And we've seen such amazing transformations that this was something huge for us to jump into. So UPW is done by Tony Robbins, and it was in San Jose, California. And it is called Unleash the Power Within. And so I'm going to show you the first slide, and I think you just have to approve me to be able to screen share, or am I okay there? Am I screen sharing? It's okay. So I'm going to do a full view, which means I'm not going to be able to see anybody for the little bit here, but we'll just put it in presenter mode so you can see it in full screen here. I can't get rid of this thing at the bottom. I don't know how to. It will just never go away. So unleash the power within, where the impossible becomes possible. And it was that packed, you guys. I can't even, we just get excited even talking about it. Literally, it was like over 10,500 people.
The energy was just unbelievable, hey? Like, as soon as you walk in, the energy was just amazing.
Yeah, it does this. It makes you smile, and immediately you look at it and you're like, oh my God, we were there. And so Tony Robbins does so many different things, but I'll start off by just quickly doing a briefing on his story. He basically grew up with like nothing. He grew up in a really abusive household with just his mom. His dad left, and his mom, as much as she was really loving, she strived with a lot of like conflicting energies and emotions that she had, and she just took it out on her kids. And so he was abused by her. She would pour dish soap down his throat. She would like beat him with a broom and, like a broom handle. And like, anyway, he talks about it openly about how his life was and how he made that change, and how literally he went around for years, like his younger years and his teens. He basically went out on his own trying to have a job, and he lived off of nothing. He went to restaurants behind the scenes and went through the garbage cans and like ate food out of the garbage can. So this is somebody who came from nothing and built himself to now he makes over $5 billion a year, massively growing. It's continuing on such a large scale. He said it's hard to actually continuously keep up with how big the growth is. Mm-hmm. So basically he only counts in like billions now.
He's like got 30 businesses.
Over 30 separate businesses. I forget how many employees he said he had.
It's crazy. And he's got like his own jet.
He's got his own jet
to fly around the world, and his own helicopter fleet. Like, and he's a pilot.
And he's a pilot.
Yeah.
But he has a house in somewhere in California. I know California is really big. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly where in California. And he has another place in Fiji. And so he does these events sort of all over the world. So this one was Unleash the Power Within, and this is a really, really great one to start with, you guys. We have a lot of his, you can order this like package too called the Ultimate Edge. It's like a starter basically for it. And you get inside, you get all these CDs and DVDs or whatever in here. And so you get, this one, and you get, so many more, and you get a work booklet, and you get all this kind of stuff as a starter. But so he works on a lot of different things. He works on your personal inner conflicts that you have. So a lot of really strong personal development. He's a mentor. He's a coach. So, how much was it if you want to hire him personally as your coach?
It's $1 million, and that's 4 sessions in a year.
So if you want to hire him personally, yes.
And there's a waiting list. I think it was
4 years.
4-year waiting list.
4-year wait list to get on with him for $1 million a year for only 4 sessions. But he has other coaches that he's trained that you can work with. And so this particular Unleash the Power Within is about finding your inner fire and your inner self, and finding out what has been holding you back, what self-limiting beliefs you've been telling yourself for all of these years, and how to let it go. And he literally forces you to let it go. And you do it amongst all these other people, being vulnerable, being uncomfortable, really just letting go of everything. And you dig deep, and it's really emotional. I don't know if you guys have seen I'm Not Your Guru. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a must watch. It's on Netflix. So it's free, right? So that's a definite must watch there. Emma, I can't see you. Do you have any comments right now? Or anybody else on the line? I'll go with no. Maybe I should see if everybody's still there, because I can't see. There you are. Okay. This little thing I can never get rid of. View. Okay, so that is essentially kind of a small breakdown of Unleash the Power Within. There's another one, Master Your Mindset. And he talks a lot about financial as well. He talks a lot on relationships. And, he's really funny because he says I have mastered all of these things because I have worked my ass off my entire life for this. I forget how old he was when they found out how that they were pregnant with his son. And at that time he was making $35,000, and he'd always told himself, I'm not going to have my child until I'm financially stable to be able to do that. The next year he made $1 million. That is the drive that this person has. And so, he was saying up on stage, he said, choose whoever you want to be your mentor, learn from whoever you want to. And he's like, but let's be real. I am the master at all of these things. I am the master of influence. I have mastered my finances clearly. My relationship is amazing. And he's put together all these programs to help other people that are struggling. He said that financially he makes the least amount of money doing UPW out of all of the other things that he has, but he does it because he wants to give back to everybody else. And that's always been his passion. That's his passion. Yeah, is giving back to everybody else. Okay, so we're going to zip along. So that's kind of an outline of what it's about. So I want you guys to write these things down or screenshot them, because it is really important. So he talks about your 4 primal needs, and it's certainty, uncertainty or variety, significance, and connection. So write those down and think in your head, what 2 things are the most important to you? What do you feel like you always need to have? Do you always need to have certainty, whether it's about your finances or your relationship, or, really try and strive to get some clarity here out of these 4 primal needs? Do you like a variety and uncertainty and, not just living by a schedule, but you're kind of, you like to be all over the place and have a lot of variety in the things you do? do you really do you strive towards being significant? I'll give you a funny example of that Paul and I ran into at the airport when we were in the States. Only America.
Only in America.
Only America. We ran into this, what was he called? What's his title?
Like he's like border security or
yeah, you know when you check it, you go through the screening or whatever with all your luggage and stuff. And so anyways, there's this really overweight guy, and he's in his uniform, and he calls you up to like check your passport, okay? And so it's like first thing in the morning when we're leaving San Jose, and we're all walking up to the booth, and there's a couple people who show up, and they're in like whatever, that VIP line or the fast line or whatever it is, right? And so they have to go in a different row, but the doors aren't open. They're totally disorganized. It's a small airport, whatever, right? Anyway, so this woman goes to like walk up to the booth, and he turns around and he scowls at her, and he puts his hand up, and he's like, no, I did not call you up here yet. And they were like, oh. And he's like, you go back there. And so literally she turned around and walked back to the booth, and he plopped himself in his chair, and he went like this, pulled up his sleeves, and he's like, now you can come forward. And Paul and I literally looked at each other and we're like, significance.
Yeah, right.
So like,
to the nth degree.
Yeah. You know, he wants to feel significant. He wants his presence known. Like, anyway, so it was just really funny because afterwards we just, you know, it's so early in the morning, and of course, you know, we start laughing at each other about that, right? And then maybe another thing for you might be connection. So that's like the fourth primal need. So I think connection is pretty self-explanatory, and that can be connection and longing for connection, whether it's your family, your boyfriend, your husband, social media, your friends. You know, is that something that's like such a really important desire for you? So out of those, pick your top two. And then we're going to move over here to spiritual needs. So there are two spiritual needs that he associates as well: growth and contribution. And then he made us do now, which are your top two. So out of all six now, what are your top two? So, you know, what he really goes on, and obviously we have like a really big manual here full of like awesome information, but that I'm always happy to share with everybody. Obviously we had to condense like day one into this basically. You know, and he really talks about where you need to continue to grow. If let's say, like his example was, let's say that your top need, one of your top primal needs is certainty. And he's like, so like in being so certain, where is that really getting you? You know, and if that is your thing, you really need to move on and let that go, right? Because being certain actually gets you really
boring.
Yeah, and he calls you boring if it's certain, right? And my things that I felt like I currently really focused on was, I was uncertain right away when I saw that. I was like, I didn't know whether it was good, bad, indifferent, and it's not. He just talks about that you need to change your focus. There's a background noise somewhere. Can we mute somebody? There's a lot of background noise. And so it was just that you needed to move if you were in certainty. You needed to move out of being certain, because that's not going to let you grow. So I hope you guys can see how being certain is actually being stuck and not letting yourself move forward. So that was a bit of a tough one. I know Paul had a tough time with certainty, and so he's really let that go now. And I probably was like the balance side, because I was like uncertainty, variety, like, you know what I mean? Like, to all those things. And then my second one was growth. So
those are my two.
Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder what Josh's are. Like, you know, Paul's were totally different than mine, and I bet his are totally different than yours too. And I can't hear anybody else, obviously, right now who's on the line to hear what theirs are. But I think it's really, really interesting, because I never really thought of how you can contribute and how you can grow in these other ways. Like, I never really thought about it like this before. So I thought actually it was really interesting. So also, you know, he talked about if your number one thing is significance, you know, he was like, why is it significant? And really dig deep to try and find out why.
you have to be significant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, where does it stem from? You know, and it's not just like a quick conversation like this. And you're like, okay, here's what it says actually in the book for significance. Everybody needs to feel special and important in some way. People will seek significance through obtaining recognition from others or from themselves. When people feel insignificant, they may make themselves feel significant by getting angry. They may also meet their needs paradoxically by having others recognize the significance of their insignificance or the size and complexity of their problems. It is important to remember that for many, helplessness is power. So, you know what I mean? If you're on significance, you got a little bit of things to work on there, right? Like, so that's the kind of, I mean, he's got a lot for all of them, little blurbs. Kind of, you can't really see them, but he's kind of got blurbs for everything. And if anybody really wants them, I'll absolutely write them out. I just didn't have time to do that today. But so, you know, he really talks about, like, it's not even just you. It's knowing other people, right? Knowing your friends, knowing your family, knowing your customers. What are their primal needs? Usually you can see them right away, like in the, whatever that security guard guy, right? You could see it right away. Significance, that is his number one thing. And you see it in a lot of people too, right? That, okay, so, you know, their most important thing is being significant. And even if that means negative reinforcement for them, right? Even if it means they have to be angry, it's like, you know what, or mean, or, you know, whatever. It's almost like an attention seeker. So, I mean, you know, I'm sorry if anybody's thing is significance, but I'm not trying to put that down, because we obviously have had all our struggles as well, right? And so he talks a lot about, like, okay, so what about contribution? Like, maybe you want to put contribution. His biggest thing is, how can I add more value to someone else's life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a huge message all the way through, actually, was, you know, not only developing you as a person, but what are you going to give back to society was a major message through the whole week, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is his biggest thing. How can I add more value? And that's what he would say. He's like, how are you going to grow? How are you going to grow your business? How are you going to grow you? Well, you need to find out what you can give back, value to other people, however you're going to do it. And then he talked about how every time he goes somewhere new, like right now he's giving, I think, like most of his sales that he had on all of his products, he was donating to
a food charity. Feeds like 1 million Americans that are hungry. Yeah. So yeah, that's what he donates a bunch of money to helping feed people, like street people. And
yeah, so he does it to every place that he goes. Like, he was all that money was going to these people in San Jose.
Yeah, in San Jose, locally. Yeah.
Oops. Okay, and then we spend a lot of time on through the week on fears. And so this is straight out of his book, out of the book that I was showing you guys there. And, you know, it's really important to identify what your fears are. Is it money? Is it, you know, being in a relationship? Is it, you know, the love and connection? Is it, do you have food fears?
Self-confidence.
Yeah, self-confidence, you know, fears driven from that. So, you know, really important to address this, like, to not just ignore this, because this is personal development that's going to help you grow. Really grow. Like, this isn't just listening to like an audio, right? It's like, well, I guess it kind of is, but, you know, you're really going to grow, right? So dig deep, like, be honest with yourself and be vulnerable just to yourself. Even that's hard sometimes, right? But what is your greatest fear? And really think about it. And you might have more than one, right? I had more than one. Mm-hmm. You had more than one as well, right? Yeah, we had quite a few, right? And then number 2, what benefits has this fear given you in the past? So obviously probably really none, right? And then
more fear. Yeah,
compounding fear. Yeah. And then why be free of this fear now? And this was super intense. Was there more to this? Did I make the font too big? I feel like there was maybe 4.
I think that was it.
Anyways, why be free of this fear now? Oh no, there was just 3.
Yeah, it was just 3.
why be free of this fear now? And this was really intense. People were crying. You actually had to like close your eyes and say what your greatest fears were, and then talk about what is like where are those fears inside you right now? Like, what is that doing to you right now? Like when you think about your fear, let's say that you have fear-based thoughts around the fact that like you don't have enough time. A lot of people talk about like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm just so busy. I just don't have time, right? And it's like, what has that done for you in the past? Having that thought, having that fear-based thought. It just keeps giving you more and more excuses to keep talking about how you don't have time. So, babe, can you turn that off? So, you know what I mean? Then you basically are becoming that significance person, really, right? If you think about it. So it's sort of giving you excuses to go on and on about time, right? And then what is that doing to you? That's obviously going to be destructive on your business. It's probably going to be destructive on your relationship as well. For either you, your husband, your fiance. It's also probably other relationships, your other members of your family, your friends, right? Your pets, like your sleep, the way you eat, right? Like the list kind of goes on and just keeps compiling on those are the things that's done. And then he says, now what you need to do is you have to kind of like get your head in a state and be like, so how is this going to affect you 5 years from now? How is this going to affect you 10 years from now? And you like really have to go into this deep state. And it basically the room goes black so you can't see anybody around you. And then he starts saying like all of the worst case scenarios. Like you keep thinking this, it's going to ruin your marriage. So, you know, how much is that divorce going to cost you? And like, who's going to take the pets and who's going to have the kids? And, you know, if you keep having these thoughts in your head, you know, you're basically destroying your life. So what? You're going to let it spiral out of control and you're going to get fat and you're going to, you know what I mean? Like he paints a very strong picture. And the reason that he does this, you might be like, oh my gosh, brutal, he's mean. It's not. It's because we connect everything we do to pain or pleasure. So everything that we strive for based on like a positive reaction, feeling good, or we steer away from it because it's painful and we don't like it, or we associate pain to it. So what he's actually doing is just so brilliant. He's associating to you to have painful experiences that are really wrenching and really deep around those things that you've been basically, he says, bullshitting yourself about for however long, however many years, however many, you know, maybe it's new, maybe it's old, but he's basically saying you want to associate pain to that so that you stop. You know, he's like, when you touch an element, you're not going to keep doing that, right? Because you associate pain to that. So you're not going to keep touching that element, no matter how cozy you might think it is. You're not just going to, you know, put your hand on the element again, right? And so that's what he's doing with that. So I hope that you guys see, I'm going to X out for a sec, but hope you guys are seeing the significance that he's like associating with those. Does that make sense? Yeah. Seeing some head nods here. Awesome. So here's just another shot that I thought was really cool. The big, you can just see how many people are there and just, people are just so engaged.
So there's like, what? There was like 10,500 people there. And we were talking about this fear. And the one thing about this is he puts you in state, peak state as he calls it. And the cool thing is, Shannon will probably touch on it more, but the cool thing about it is like, I'm not a big crowd person. You know, I don't really like being in crowds, but the amazing thing about going to this and being right in the middle of this was you had the support of 10,500 people. Like literally, Shannon and I actually separated and we sat with different people, like people that we had, you know, didn't know. And
which, by the way, turned out to be Melanie Mitro's elite team.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. And but it was amazing because part of it is like it puts you out of your your comfort zone, first of all, but you have the support. Everybody's there for, well, different reasons, but everybody was supportive, and you didn't feel like threatened, you know, and they really encourage everybody to, you know, you're balls to the wall with us. Like you've
150%.
You've committed to this, you've flown down, you spent the money, and you need to be balls to the wall with it and not be afraid. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. And I tell you, like, it's the first time I've ever like really broken out of my shell, and like we're hugging like strangers, we're like giving strangers massages, we're crying with strangers. I'm like hugging like these. I was sitting by this one guy, you know, this big dude, he's in the military, and we, you know, we're sharing our fears, and you know, like sitting there crying on each other's shoulder, but it's such a safe environment, and it's such a, there's just so much energy, you know, and you can't even, you have to experience it, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, I'll just show you with the, okay, so this is the premier row. I remember Emma was just checking on seating because I know she's getting ready to go. But so this is all premier seating. If you can see my little mouse going back and forth at the front, that's all premier. And then you can see this little sign, it says platinum. So this is all the platinum people. And then this is the row of diamond. And then
I think that was it on the floor.
Was that it on the floor? Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of the premier people actually travel with Tony. Like, it's like they have like this exclusive continuous pass to go to like all of his events. So
and they're all like multi-millionaire, billionaire people. Like these are all like high-end rollers of the world.
Which it was just neat to hear their experiences, because we actually, the people who get to share is everybody who's down on the floor here. And so a little bit you're like, oh, what's your biggest problem down there, you know? But it was really interesting to see, because there was one girl that he reached out to, and her, you know, it's sort of like in I'm Not Your Guru, where he kind of like taunts at them a bit, and then he finds out like what their actual fear is. And so he found out this one girl, and she was really hanging on to, even though it was pretty fresh, but she was hanging on to the fact that she had a miscarriage, you know, and she felt all this pressure that she was creating on herself. Anyways, and then so basically he went through a lot of different things with her, and then he's like, and do you think these feelings are original? And then he's like, how many people out there have had the same experience or are very close to someone who's had the same experience? And literally, oh my gosh, over half of the room put up their hands. And he's like, that's how original that is. And so what he's saying is like, people can relate to you. Like, this is relatable. This has happened to other people. And anyway, so that part was just really interesting that he touched on there. So the ultimate success formula. I thought this was really great and really relatable to all of us. So I really wanted to include this in tonight's call. So the ultimate success formula. Number one, know your outcome. Like, what do you want? And be specific. Be specific. It's like, I don't know if any of you are doing Team Z now to try and help organize, but be specific. How much money do you want to make? How many people do you want to help? Like, and number two, know your reason why. Do you want financial freedom because you want to be able to travel? You know, like, what is your deep reason why? You know what I mean? And like he says too, it's not that pageant reason why, it's your deep reason why. For him, it was like, oh my God, I have a baby on the way. And it was his beliefs that he had to make money in order to support that child. That's how he went from $35,000 to $1 million the next year. Take massive action. And this really was super inspiring throughout the entire seminar. Was all about like massive action and getting, like Paul was talking about, getting in your state. And it was like a lot of music, a lot of being pumped up to get to feel massive action. Know what you are getting. So what are you getting at the end of this? Like, there's what you want, and then what are you getting at the end of it? And then if that doesn't work, change your approach. And then if that doesn't work, change your approach again. And then if that doesn't work,
change your approach again.
And what if that doesn't work?
Change your approach again.
Right? And like, this went on for like 10 minutes, but he's like, seriously, he's like, why do you people give up so quickly? Why? Like, just change your approach, right? And it's so true. I mean, like, even something so ridiculously simple as like hashtags, right? Like, if you're not getting a lot of, you know, new people or a lot of likes or hits or however you want to look at it, change your approach. Try something new, you know, just small things like that, right?
Shan, we have 10 minutes left.
Okay, that's good. I think we'll be good in 10 minutes. I don't think we have too many slides left. So the power of beliefs. So, you know, for him, he says a power or a belief is a feeling of certainty about what something means. And what does he think about certainty? Right? So remember, the past does not equal the future. So that's not what you're comparing anything to. So any of your fears that you have are all from your past. You don't have a fear about what's coming up because you haven't created that yet, right? You're creating it right now, right? So don't be certain about something that happened in the past is basically what he's saying, right? 3 beliefs for lasting success. It must change. I must change it now, and I can change it now. So whatever your fears were, whatever your limiting beliefs are, you need to change them because you can change them, right? I mean, he talks about smoking even, you know, and he talks about depression, and he, you know, he really, I mean, he even that girl who was in, you know, feeling like real depression, that's how it came up, who's depressed in the room. And some people were jumping up and down. Oh, me. Yeah. He's like, you know, of course he didn't. Yeah, he didn't like that at all, right? Yeah. And so he said, like, you know, he's like, he was basically showing you by getting into your state. He was showing you, he said, like, how fast can you change that? Like, she was crying and then like that fast. She was laughing. He's like, how fast did you change your state? That fast, in a heartbeat. That's what he says every time. How fast? In a heartbeat. And it actually is really important to recognize that we are putting ourselves in that state, right? And you do need to change it. So all these, it must change now. I must change it now, and I can change it now, right? And so you can see how it's a lot of like positive, like rah rah. The walk on fire.
Woo, woo, fire walkers.
So say yes. That was like a lot of the motivational stuff that you can do, right? You'd be like, say yes. And you really had to like fist bump in the air, right? So this was day 1 was actually the fire walk that we did. And it looked like that. It was initially quite terrifying, but I mean, you went out there with all those other people. So you started to be like, well, I can't really pussy out of this because look at all these.
You were so pumped at that point.
Yeah, you were so pumped.
In such a high
state. You were like, I guess this is going to work. Oprah did it, right? Yeah. Like, yeah. So, that's basically what they did. And they set it up out in a back parking lot. So obviously they're showing you getting ready, like in the stage here, but we actually did it out in the back parking lot in the cement. So, and then they just lined it with all the fire. Obviously there was like millions of rows because there was 10,500 people who had to like get through it. So yeah, that, like, what an experience. I mean, you really had to get in state, and you worked on it all day on getting really focused. And then you actually really have like a very strong belief about your connection, mind-body connection after you do this, because if you don't get in that state, let me tell you, your feet are going to burn. And our feet, I can show you the bottom of my feet. They did not burn. We did not get burned at all. And you don't just like step on it like with 1, 2. Like you do like this big row.
You're like marching.
Yeah, you go to march.
It's like what was it? Like 30 feet, 30 or 40 feet we walked.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And then what do we have to say? Cold moss.
Oh yeah. Wet moss. Wet moss.
And just like, you got to keep focused, right? And it was like, you could see people and look up, and you had to like march all the way to the end. And then people actually had to physically stop people because you were in this state, like this trance. Does that sound crazy? I don't know. But
no.
Okay. So empowering beliefs exercise, write down each old limiting belief and then cross it out. This is the exercise for you guys. And then write your new empowering belief below. So for example, I don't know how to make the cross out thing, but here's the limiting belief. he always said the bullshit word, right? So the old bullshit belief that I had was that love equals pain. My new empowering belief is the truth is that I can feel love anytime I give it, right? So just write that exercise down or screenshot it because we're getting low on time. But, you know, we actually had to turn to people and like shout it at them and be like, the old bullshit belief that I had. And you were both like yelling at each other. And so that was kind of interesting. And then just some highlights. Pitbull was there. If you guys know Pitbull, he's a Cuban rap artist that came from like square zero, no money. He came in, he did 3 of his, basically a huge concert, smoke show. He had dancers and stuff like that. And he came to tell us how Tony basically changed his life. And they're awesome friends. And then he sung 3 of his most famous songs with his whole squad there. That was cool. Obviously, another highlight of doing things like this, you guys, is you really get to bond and connect with your team. So Jacqueline Hughes, Good Vibe Tribe, and Meredith Ganau, Good Vibe Tribe. Also Soul Warriors, Viva Vida. Super cool, right? To be able to like see your team members and really like get together and know that this is for real, you know? Really cool. Good support. Another bonus was we got to see this guy. I advise you to look him up because he's this incredible, incredible man that I didn't know about. Many of you might. I didn't. Paul didn't know about him either. He's called the Iceman. Wim Hof is his name if you haven't heard of him. He literally he changes his state. And so he's really focused in UPW on changing your state. And how many minutes do we have left? 3. Okay, really he focuses on, and so that's what Tony talks so much about is changing your state, getting into state. Literally, we did this like really crazy cool exercise with him. It was a breathing exercise that totally changed your state, and you had some pretty wild experiences with it. So I'm a believer because I did it, and same with Paul, had some pretty wild experiences too. So I'm getting his book, and it's called, I think, like How to Become the Iceman. He can make crazy voice, like noises with his throat, mouth, whatever.
The dude like ran like Antarctica, like the North Pole. So like in a t-shirt and bare feet and
those shorts.
That's it. And he did Mount Everest. With no oxygen, no climbing gear, just a shirt and shorts. He
can control, obviously, for any of you who know me, I'm cold all the time. So when I heard he was coming on, it was like the highlight moment for me because I was like, he can control the temperature of his body. Obviously, like that's his big thing. And so for me, I was like, oh my God, the miracle. But we didn't get to talk about that. He got cut short, but anyways, look him up, you guys. Super cool. Less than a minute. So I just want to say thanks, everybody, for jumping on.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Oh, I can't wait to go.
Yeah, so exciting.
And when I got home, I did a vision board.
Nice.
Vision board. My action plans.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining us and have a fantastic night. Please screenshot or go back and review this when Emma gives us our link that's recorded. Thanks for joining us and have a great Wednesday night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.